In the last lecture, we have started with module number 6. In this module, as we already discussed, it is very important from the point of view of prevention and mitigation measures. We have already discussed about what are the factors which are involved in disaster, is poverty, lack of information, environmental degradation, rapid urbanization, population growth, and was vulnerable to such type of disasters was as well as a person with limited resources, limited capacity to cope up with impact. Now, how to manage this type of disasters and what is the role of disaster management? We have discussed a very important cycle of disaster management and stages in disaster management. Now, over here, as you can see, there are actually total 5 stages: prevention, preparedness, relief, research, and rehabilitation. We have discussed till then. To give you a proper view, I have 2 videos for you that will explain you why prevention and mitigation is important and what is the need of it, because it will form one question: what is the necessity or what is the importance of preparedness and mitigation? Let us see the videos first. Is it audible?
No, sir.
Its Republic Day on Saturday, January 26, 2001, a tremendous earthquake measuring 6.9 on the Richter scale struck Gujarat in the western part of the country. The quake's epicenter was near the town of Bhuj in the Kutch district, and the tremors were felt in Pakistan and as far away as Nepal. The death toll was as high as 1 lakh, and buildings in several areas were completely destroyed. Such incidents warn us that disasters, either natural, like the Bhuj earthquake, or man-made, like an epidemic, can strike us at any time. So, we should always be prepared to handle such situations. Disaster management prepares us to deal with such situations by preventing any calamity, minimizing the effects, and taking timely action for normalizing the situation. Disaster management is a chain of activities carried out before, during, and after the disaster occurs. To effectively deal with disaster in all its stages, disaster management is broken down into 4 important stages. These are advanced preparation, relief to the victims, restoration of normalcy, and prevention plan for the future. Let's discuss each of these stages in detail. Making advanced preparation involves educating the people about such occurrences and making adequate plans so that they are ready to manage the situation when disaster strikes. Government bodies, non-governmental organizations or NGOs, and the corporate sector play an important role in educating people and raising awareness among the community. An important part of advanced planning involves taking steps to lessen the impact of the disaster before it occurs. Therefore, it is very important to install a proper warning system so that everyone can be warned about the impending calamity in advance. While it is very difficult to predict natural disasters like the Bhuj earthquake, cyclones can be predicted with the use of modern technology like satellite tracking. One of the best-known examples of an effective early warning was the cyclone warning provided by the INSAT system during the cyclone in Andhra Pradesh in 1977. This warning helped to substantially reduce the loss of life and property. Another important part of this stage is the advanced preparation of lists of the materials and resources which may be required at that time. For example, mobile medical facilities, tents, rescue equipment, and so on. Once these plans are in place, the people should be trained to respond to the situation through mock drills, training, and practice. The next stage deals with bringing relief to the victims. Once a disaster strikes, rescuing people is the topmost priority. Therefore, trained teams should be deployed to trace affected people and rescue them. Regular updates on the rescue status should also be given to the relatives of the affected. Once the affected have been rescued, food, shelter, and medical help are the next requirement. For this, community kitchens and arrangements for proper tents and toilets should be made for the affected people. In the case of the Bhuj earthquake, rescue efforts started almost immediately. Search and rescue teams made up of 399 rescuers carrying heat-sensing equipment and 26 rescue dogs assisted in the search and rescue operation. With their concentrated efforts, more than 300 persons were rescued alive in the first 5 days. One of the most memorable moments was when 8-month-old Murtaza Ali was rescued by the Border Security Force personnel from under the ruins of his house after being buried alive for 81 hours. The injured were provided treatment in the mobile medical units, while the affected people were put up in thousands of tents supplied by international organizations like CARE. Various organizations set up community kitchens to provide food to these affected people. Did you know that one such kitchen served food to as many as 3,500 people per day? This community kitchen was set up in Adesar by a Mumbai-based organization called Jain Sasan. After rescue operations, the third stage starts: restoration of normalcy and rehabilitation. Communication services get most severely affected in these disasters. To achieve normalcy, these services are restored at the earliest, followed by the rehabilitation process. This involves helping the displaced people emotionally and economically. Often the victims of disasters suffer great mental trauma due to loss of loved ones. Such people are offered sympathy and the services of support groups to tide over the emotional issues. Apart from emotional support, economic support is also vital, as most of the affected lose almost everything, like their homes and valuables, during such disasters. For example, the Bhuj earthquake caused severe loss not only of human life, but also property. A large number of towns and villages in the district of Kutch suffered almost complete destruction, with homes, schools, hospitals, health centers, and public buildings flattened to the ground. In Ahmedabad, more than 70 high-rise residential buildings collapsed. To deal with such loss, the government set up the Gujarat Earthquake Rehabilitation and Reconstruction Project to rebuild the affected areas with the active participation of the local communities and help restore normalcy. Once normalcy has been restored, the last stage begins, making a prevention plan for the future. Depending on the type of disaster, various community awareness and education programs can be taken up to avoid future risks. For example, after a severe earthquake, areas of high risk are identified so as to prevent people from settling in those regions. Furthermore, buildings can be constructed in earthquake-proof areas that are designed to withstand the seismic shocks without getting damaged. In the case of the Bhuj earthquake, it was found that the towns in Gujarat that were most damaged, like Anjar, Bachau, Bhuj, and Gandhidham, were situated on fault lines. Strict building codes were enforced in such areas to ensure that the reconstructed buildings were earthquake and cyclone resistant. In this manner, disaster management prepares people to deal with disasters before, during, and after they occur.
Uh, Hello? As you can see, this video was very good. Everything was explained in a simple manner with a example of Bhuj earthquake. Why preparedness is important, how the government as well as non-government organizations help in preparedness, educating people at each and every level, as well as there are three important factors in disaster management, that is before, during, and after disaster. How we should provide help to the victims and immediate relief, as well as after that we have to go for rehabilitation, and after rehabilitation again we have to go for preparedness. This is the continuous cycle. That was a simple example. I have one more such example for you that also we'll be discussing. Let me present a screen. Meanwhile, those who are there in concrete technology practices course, the assignment one is assigned to everyone, those who are there in Google Classroom. Go through the assignment and you have to complete it before 17th.
Fresh produce. However, life. Meet Mia. Mia works as a small hotel owner, renting rooms to people who visit her town, known for its beautiful nature and fresh produce. However, life there is not always easy, as her home is prone to hurricanes and flooding. These natural hazards can greatly damage people's houses, businesses, and resources, and can even push them into a poverty trap. But it doesn't have to be like this. As the frequency and intensity of natural hazards continue to increase, more and more experiences have been made on how to increase resilience to these events with the help of insurance and other risk transfer instruments. To better protect Mia against possible natural hazards, there are 5 steps. 1. Risk prevention. 2. Addressing of residual risk. 3. Preparing. 4. Responding. And 5. Recovering. These steps are all part of a disaster risk management approach that integrates risk transfer solutions. 1. Prevention. The first thing that should be done to help prevent serious damage is a risk analysis, which identifies the hazards in a specific area and analyzes how exposed the people, businesses, agricultural fields, and infrastructure are. This analysis will reveal what can be done to prevent damage and feed into the risk transfer instruments and early warning systems in the next phases. In this area of prevention, Mia can strengthen her hotel and home with stronger materials to make them more resistant to wind. Her community can work together to plant trees, build a wall to protect farmland and infrastructure from heavy rain, or clean drainage systems to prevent flooding. The government can implement and enforce land use restrictions to ensure that people don't build in flood-prone areas. 2. Addressing residual risk. However, even if you put all preventive measures in place, some residual risk still remains. This is where ex-ante financing, that is, financing before a hazard strikes, can help. As an individual, Mia can take out a microinsurance policy in case her hotel is damaged. Weather index insurance could be a good option for the farmers in Mia's community, which will pay out when there has been too much or too little rain throughout the year. If Mia and her community do not manage these risks ex ante but ex post, that is, after a hazard strikes, then they will be forced to rely on friends and families, savings, or additional borrowings. The government can also protect their citizens with pre-disaster financing using contingent debt facilities, which ensure that funding will be available immediately after a hazard hits and by taking out their own insurance. This money can then be used to provide emergency relief to the people or support reconstruction. If governments plan how to manage the financial consequences of a natural hazard, they will not need to manage ad hoc and rely on donor assistance, additional taxes, budget shifts, or taking out credit from external actors. Implementing different prevention measures will greatly help in reducing the cost of these types of insurance and financial instruments because they significantly reduce the overall risk exposure. 3. Preparing. After Mia and her community protect themselves with ex-ante financing, they need to prepare themselves for the natural hazards. They can do this by stockpiling food and water in case of an emergency and making sure that they have a safe place to go should a flood or hurricane come their way. The government can also train individuals in rescue and emergency services, establish early warning systems, and come up with a contingency plan to ensure that everyone knows what to do. Adaptation investments, that is, investments made to help countries adapt to climate change, microcredit, and increasing savings, could also be good options for the government to better prepare. 4. Responding. When a natural hazard hits, Mia, her community, and the government enter the response phase. It is essential to respond quickly to avoid further loss of human life or material damage. They can do this by helping with the search and rescue effort, providing temporary shelter and food, and quickly repairing the most needed infrastructure. The ex-ante financing will play a big role in making this quick response possible. It may also be necessary to acquire some ex-post financing by increasing taxes, reallocating national budgets, or taking out credit. Without this financing, it can be very difficult for people and the government to get back on their feet. 5. Recovering. Now that Mia has responded to the first impacts of the disaster, she can start the recovery process. The good news is that with the right assistance, her savings, and possible payouts from her insurance, she can start to build back better. This can be done by examining the affected areas and repairing things in a smarter way that prevents these damages from happening again. All these steps are linked to each other and are most effective when countries and their governments, communities, and individuals work together. When everyone knows what should be done to prepare for a natural hazard, the consequences will be much less severe. Thanks to this disaster risk management approach and integrated risk transfer solutions, like insurance, Mia and her community will be more resilient and can make sure that these natural hazards never turn into disasters.
So how was the video? So are you there or you are sleeping? What do you understand by this video? What is the outcome? What you can understand by these two videos? What we should do for disaster management? What is the first step of disaster management? The actual approach in disaster management is to reduce the hazard itself, or you can say reduce the impact of that particular hazard by providing appropriate measures well in advance. And for that, simple thing we can do is capacity building. Yes, by analyzing the risk, we have to build our capacity. And for capacity building, the simple example they are given us insurance. As we know, we all have automobile insurance, and it is mandatory. The same manner, we should have a life insurance as well as a property insurance. Because when you are prepared, then after disaster, during rehabilitation and reconstruction, or you can say in the recovery phase, whatever you are invested in insurance will be helpful for you. Many of you are having medical insurance as well. At this situation, those who are having medical policies, they are not so stressed if they have to go and admit in private hospital as well, because they know they have some type of cover or backing. They can pay that amount of bills, as well as government is also providing some help in the form of finance directly. To reduce the impact and increase capacity, we can analyze the risk, we can analyze the type of hazard, and will be prepared for it by strengthening the structure. And secondly, by having the insurance that will be helpful in the recovery. For example, you buy a new automobile, your car or bike, for first 5 years, तुमने insurance policy लिया. Then for 1 year, at the 6th year, you're like कि 5 साल से कुछ इसका use नहीं हो रहा है, so let us not invest in this. पैसा फुकट जा रहा है, right? And that year only, because of some misfortune, some damage to your vehicle happened, and you realize you are not having an insurance policy, it is expired. At that time, whatever may be the recovery price or repair price, you have to pay by your pocket directly. तो 10,000 का इंश्योरेंस नहीं लिया, and now you have to pay ₹1,00,000 for his repair. Make sure whatever you are investing, that is for your future only. Keep in that mind, you should have a life insurance as well as your insurance for belongings. And importance क्या है इसका? ये importance है कि it will be helpful for recovery. Because after disaster, whatever left, then you have to go for borrowing money from relatives, and you have to take loans, debits from government. That burden will be more on you. For that reason, we should be prepared for any such type of disaster by taking proper measures. Education is also important, but at the same time, you should have proper insurance policies which will help you in disaster management. After this, let us start with each point one by one, starting with prevention. To prevent something, we should first understand what is the risk. And for understanding the risk, we have to go for risk hazard mapping. We have to map, as we have already discussed, mapping of India for earthquake, floods, cyclones, and such type of disasters. In some manner, we have to go for risk hazard mapping at your home as well as at your college or workplace. Then vulnerability zones we have to identify. As we know, the public places are more vulnerable. or any type of hazard. We have to identify such type of zones, then development of total contingency plan, communication of all policies to people and members of society. Everyone should understand and everyone should know what are the different policies from government that will help them in prevention of disaster. Government also investing in preventive measures because they also know after disaster, if we are not properly prepared, it will cost them much more. You can say 50 to 100 times more. For that reason, we should be prepared. For that, we have research and development team is continuously experimenting new things which will be helpful before disaster for giving you warnings in some natural events like earthquake, floods, cyclones. And cyclone system is very good. The recent example you can take is a Nisarga cyclone that hits Maharashtra, Raigad district. We all are aware of that particular cyclone 48 hours before me. So it gives us time to prepare ourselves as well as to the government agencies. Then how to go for the preventive steps? I will give you a simple example. For example, a particular region or area in the past there are chances of landslide. What we can do, we will prevent the use of that line, or you can say land use restrictions. The government will have a policy in which that land cannot be used for residential purpose or any commercial purpose. That can be only used for agricultural purpose. These are land use restrictions. By doing so, what we are doing, we are reducing the vulnerability. When you reduce the vulnerability, automatically we are reducing the casualties and victims. Next come environmental management. In environmental management, as we know, we have many policies for that region only. Nowadays, if you see automobiles also come with a part which is providing less pollutions. Or we have many such rules and regulations for industries and factories as well. Whatever waste gases or water or material coming out from that particular industry, they have to treat it and then and only then they can dump it whether into water, air or land. So we have some environmental management rules and laws. Preventive measures in the form of engineering measures. It means what? We have to strengthen our structure by providing proper earthquake resistant and flood resistant. Because if you see in the past, because of floods and earthquake, many of structures are fallen down, and because of which there are more casualties and accidents. To avoid this, we should be well prepared in advance by providing proper engineering measures. the form of using earthquake resistant structures as well as by using good quality material, good quality skilled labor, and monitoring. As an engineer, whenever we are planning, designing, executing any structure, we have to make sure that your structure is safe for any such type of hazard. We have to take preventive measures in advance only. थोड़ा पैसा बचाने के लिए you are using secondary material, but because of that secondary material, the impact of that particular hazard will be so high that you have to invest 10 times more what you have saved. And there will be also loss of life. Money is not important when it comes about life and property. Next term is preparedness. So how will you prepare yourself? To prepare yourself, first of all, we have to go for analyzing and surveying a particular property or region, or you can say structure also. We have to collect proper information and we have to examine that data available with us. Then we should use proper prediction and forecasting methods, analyzing the past performance of behavior of particular structure or weather in that particular region. Then we have to teach citizens, workers, or volunteers, NGOs, or experts how to deal with such type of events. Means what we are preparing them to respond in that particular hazard. Educating is also a part of preparedness, educating and training. Then plan and systematic approach to mitigate loss of life and property. It means what? We have to properly plan and design in the beginning only, or whenever we go for repair also, we should see that particular structure will not have same type of degradation, or you can say same type of problem in the future as well. So in such manner, we have to plan it in a systematic approach. Otherwise, you are investing money again and again for no use. You can take an example of potholes. As you are a civil engineer, you understand what is the importance, because we are investing money and every year for repairment of potholes, but we didn't find a solution yet. The material or the type of road we can construct which will be suitable for our environment and which will not cause any type of such pothole. You can take this challenge as your B project also and find out a solution for our Mumbai region so that our roads are of pothole free. This is a very big challenge. Government and other private agencies are also trying for many such years, but still we are not find out a proper solution for it. Same manner, there are many challenges, so we have to find out answer to it. Then promote public awareness. For example, you can take Use of fuel. As you all know, storage of fuel is limited, so the awareness is we have to use public transport or we have to use automobiles which are running on solar light, or we can use bicycles which are not consuming any external energy. This is nothing but promoting the public awareness, making people aware of such events which will happen in future. And the main and very important point is keeping database ready so that it will be useful for anyone, any authority who is responsible for taking that responsibility of disaster management. So we have to file all the data and keep it handy. This all comes under preparedness, how to prepare a community and organization for dealing with such type of disaster. Now, after preparedness, when the hazard strike, as soon as hazard strike, we should go for relief measures. In relief measure, the most important point is evacuation and transport. We have to evacuate people, we have to rescue people, and we have to transport it to the safe house or a safe place where they will get all the required attention, emergency help. So, this type of four main emergency relief required for any victim is food, meditations, clothes, and shelter. The food we have to provide them for 7 days, that is dry atta and rice, purified water, supply chain with the government or NGOs. So we have to provide them food for at least for 7 days because that is a recovery phase. First 7 days or first week, you can say it is a recovery phase. Because if you have insurance also, after a particular disaster, you will take a day or two to collect all the documentation, whatever required, and contact to that particular agency. After contacting, they will come investigate and then they will provide you a particular help. So that will take at least 7 days, and for that reason, government or NGOs will provide at least 7 days food. Or if you are living in a rescue camp or relief camps also, there you will get food or at least you will get a new home or rehabilitation is done. Then you should provide medicines. If someone seriously injured, we have to transfer them to a emergency operation theaters. Antidotes and vaccines should be available in required amount. We require some life-saving drugs. In this situation, as you all know, we were lack of oxygen beds. But now, if you see, we have sufficient amount of oxygen beds as well as ventilators. It should be made available to the people. Many a times, what happens? Resources are available, but because of lack of communication, or you can say because of any other reason, it is not made available to the people or beneficiaries, and that's the reason we feel that there is shortage of such resources. All the medicines and hospital facilities should be available immediately. Clothes in the form of blankets, saris, children wear should be provided. So many times, all we know, we donate such type of clothes so that it will be beneficiaries for those who are affected by any type of disaster. You should go and donate It is not it is not necessary you should donate money only, finance. You can donate food, you can donate medicines, you can donate clothes also. And lastly, we have to provide shelters. Shelter in the form of temporary structures like tents, first aid tents, you can say generators we have to provide, radio wireless sets we have to provide them or some entertainment, whether they will get a continuous information about what is been done and how the rehabilitation and reconstruction or recovery phase is going on. These are some important points you have to see whenever you go for relieving. After relief stage, the important point is research and rehabilitation. You can see research which is very important. Not only rehabilitation, you are not constructing the same structure again. We have to go for research and then we will rehabilitate or reconstruct. So for reconstruction or rehabilitation, we have to go for case study. We have to identify what are the damage is there, what type of damage is there, and prevent such type of damage in future. What can be done? And for that reason, we have a research and development team which work upon it, and then we'll go for new town planning or you can say new community planning, society planning. Then and only then we have to go for rehabilitation. Otherwise, पट्टी लगाने का काम नहीं करना अपने को. As a civil engineer, if you see in civil engineering language, I will tell you, पट्टी नहीं लगाना तुम लोग को. Whatever rehabilitation or reconstruction we are doing, or you can say repair works also, we have to make sure that in future such type of disaster or such type of hazard is there, it will not affect a particular structure in that manner. अलग problem आता है, then it is different thing. But after reconstruction or rehabilitation also the same problem is happening over and over again. Then it is of no use. You are wasting your money as well as time. You have to go for research. And for that reason, we should have a good network of research and development team. We will get a good solution. You can take the current example. In each and every country, they are trying for the vaccination process. Research and development team should be very strong. Now, what is pre-disaster? Any one of you can use your chat box. चलो बताओ क्या रहेगा प्री डिजास्टर डेफिनेशन. व्हाट इज प्री डिजास्टर? हाउ यू कैन डिफाइन इट? Those who are present and not sleeping, you can reply in chat box. What is pre disaster and how you can define a pre disaster? Yes,
हेलो सर.
हाँ, what is pre disaster? बताओ. How you can define
हेलो
pre
सर.
disaster? हाँ,
सर प्री डिजास्टर का मतलब हम ये कह सकते हैं कि अगर एक्सेस रेनफॉल हो रहा है तो वहाँ पे फ्लड आने के चांसेस होते हैं, तो फिर मतलब एस्टिमेशन से पता चल जाता है कि अभी इतना एक्सेस रेनफॉल हो रहा है तो फिर फ्लड आ सकता है.
exactly. और by looking at the previous data also, we can identify that यहाँ पे फ्लड आ सकता है. So pre disaster are इसमें तीन important है points. First होता है preparedness. That is actions that result in persons knowing what to do and how to respond after disaster has happened, or preparing them for that particular disaster is termed as pre-disaster. In pre-disaster, there are three main terms. First is preparedness, preparing yourself as well as others for that particular disaster. What will be happen if that type of hazard comes, and how to respond after that particular disaster. That is known as preparedness, preparing yourself to face any problems. For example, exam tests होता है. When exam tests are declared, you make yourself prepared for examination, and also after exam, what will be the consequences? You prepared yourself. Same manner, we can prevent any hazard for prevention. Now, what is prevention? This all definition you should note down. तो तुम लोग को लिखवा नहीं रहा इसका मतलब ये नहीं है कि these are not important. Whatever you feel important or definition you should note down. So prevention. Prevention means what? Activities that are designed to provide permanent protection from disaster. You can say permanent protection because if such type of disaster happening again and again and it is affecting you in the same way, it means you are not preventing it or you are not prepared for it. Prevention means what? It should have a proper way so that it will be a permanent protection or you can say permanent solution for such type of disaster, which includes engineering and physical protective measures and legislation to control land use and urban planning. The example I have given you already, if there are chances of landslide in that particular region, we can directly avoid or you can make a policy or law that this land will not be used for urbanization or any such type of where vulnerability will be increased. So you can make directly strict laws. That is known as prevention because that will be what? A permanent protection. And the last term in pre-disaster, that is mitigation. Mitigation means what? Measures taken in advance on an event aimed at decreasing or eliminating its impact on society and environment. All such actions are known as what? Mitigation measures. In that also, you can avoid giving permission to, for example, you can now take RA Karshir for metro project. That politics is also included, that is a different reason, but you can say that is a mitigation measure by not providing or you can say but not allowing them to cut trees over there and planting a metro car shed. That was a mitigation measure because of which there will be a chances of many such natural events of landslide, you can say climate change, excessive rainfall. So to avoid all the situations, what we can do, we can preserve the forest land and agricultural land, and the rules should be made so that these land zones are not available for urbanization. And we have many such zones now available. We have the law also which prevents land from urbanization. These are the main three important definitions and terms which are useful for pre-disaster. Now this is a simple thing and a simple example for all of us. Chat box में ready रहो चलो इसका आंसर देने के लिए. As you can see and you all are aware, there is a hazard present over here. Vulnerability is also present. When hazard meets vulnerability, it will result in what? Disaster. Right? Now we are in pre-disaster phase. So what we can do? How we can prepare for it? For preparing ourselves, we should have a alarming sign or we can say warning signs. Alarming or warning system should be there. So you can see over here, another person is warning him by shouting, "Watch out, the rock is falling." So that whoever falling or who is standing near the hazard will run away from it. It means what? Preparedness. So how we can prepare? By providing alarming system or warning system. Now, how will you prevent yourself from such type of hazard? चलो फटाफट बताओ. I have to finish this slide. ये हो गया preparedness का मैंने बताया अभी. You tell me how will you prevent yourself from such type of hazard? A falling rock, you are standing over here. How will you prevent it? Or you are living near a landslide prone area. So how will you prevent yourself? Vacant. Okay. Or कुछ? Very good. Moving away from the area. Moving away from that area. Okay. That is preparedness. Na? You are moving away from that area. How will you prevent yourself? और क्या कर सकते हैं for preventing? Soil stabilization, clear the hazard. Okay, clear the hazard. Okay. Okay. Retaining walls. That is a good answer. Provide retaining wall. Good, good. So how we can prevent is, as you all said, we cannot clear hazard, but what we can do, we can avoid it by providing some retaining wall or protective measures so that the hazard is minimized. तो रॉक गिर रहा था उसको हम लोग क्या कर सकते हैं? We can preventing from falling down by providing proper measures. Very good. And last term was mitigation. I will mitigate it. For mitigation, what we can do, we can provide shelter to ourselves. We can increase our capacity. If such type of disaster is happening, hazard is happening also, it will not convert into a disaster because we are not vulnerable to it. We are not exposed to it. We are preparing ourselves by providing a proper shelter so that it is known as the mitigation. So we alert all the time for quick action. Yes, very good. So you can see for pre-disaster, these three terms are very important: preparedness, prevention, and mitigation. By doing all this, we can reduce automatically the impact of a particular event or hazard. I guess you all understand these three terms, that is pre-disaster. We'll discuss all this in much more detail in further lectures. Okay. Thank you so much.